Dzień dobry, dzieci. It's episode 23 of the Flurza Experience, a show about cards and Gwent and flesh and blood, and as of today, Marvel Snap, too. I got Marvel Snap access today. And there's actually today being July 6th, Mr. Pavel Burza. First question is can you hear my air conditioner buzzing?
No,
Oh,
I
perfect.
cannot.
Amazing. So I can stay cool while we do this. But the wonderful part is that there's so many different card games that are out there now, new ones being announced and released. And just today, by the time this gets put out there, it'll be old news. But just today, like a couple minutes ago, we all found out that, what is it called? Rogue Mage?
Rogue Mage is coming out.
Yeah, so this is what Golden Necker Project was, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody who was kind of like, can you tell us more about the Golden Necker Project? Well,
So
here you go.
There it is.
What's the-
Rogue Mage.
What's the move? I'm just curious. What's the move about just dropping it? It feels like not so much like you planned to release it. It feels like you guys were driving down the highway, you hit a speed bump and it fell out of the trunk, and your guys are like, well, screw it, we're not turning back, here it is.
No, to be honest, it's been something that we've been working on for quite some time. It was hard to find a good release date for it, and we wanted to tie it somehow, since it's an expansion to Gwent. We wanted to tie it to some other good stuff that will be happening in the game, and Black Sun also felt like a good time, especially that when we updated, we added those files into the game client. So the game is technically the majority of the game, the skeleton of the game is there within the client itself. So we want to have those two releases close to each other. Plus, wanted to do it in the summertime so we can then later move on and focus on other things. And it was just a project that I felt like we postponed a couple times when it comes to release date. So pretty much we decided that, now would be the best time. The sooner the better. And we just want players to actually get to, play it and experience it finally. Because, like I said, since we kind of moved it around a lot of times, for me, it's just happy to finally announce it. Because it's been something that's been, we've been kind of waiting to do. And so that's why it's just coming out of the blue. And it was cool because we got to partner with IGN, with Ryan from IGN. So he was excited for it. And we sat down with him. We guided him through the game. And he made a super nice article detailing everything that came out today. And we're recording this on a Wednesday. And the game comes out on Thursday this week. So when you're watching this, it's already out. So hopefully you played it, you checked it out. If you have any feedback, ideas, questions, feel free to reach out.
Oh, it's there. It is on my queue as unknown game, as it were. I got hooked up with a code for it, which I'm very, very happy and excited for. And
nice.
Now you mentioned it was delayed. When was the original target date, out of curiosity?
There were a couple, to be honest. We were also thinking about the scope of the overall project, like what we wanted to position it as. And we felt like an expansion for Gwent would be good because we kind of seen that a lot of players were looking for something that would be kind of closed within its own boundaries. Let's say it's not like a game that evolves and is, monthly updated. It's more of a thing that is, contained within its own single player realm. And kind of a lot of people after Witcher 3, what they want is a single player version of Gwent. And this is kind of catering to those players, or to players that enjoy roguelikes like Slay the Spire, for example. This is kind of something along the lines, but still it is more drawn into Gwent, as Gwent is right now.
Sweet. So all of the speculation about what Golden Necker Project, I mean, it was kind of reshaped, and kind of a lot of those fires were put out when you mentioned that it was like PvE or single player, and now here we are. I'm excited again. Like I think I mentioned, was it last week or recently? Either way, that I play a lot of single player campaigns now, especially with Runeterra, the Path of Champions. I was all over that. It's kind of like my time killer when I'm like on the train, when I'm, if I've got like 30 minutes while something's in the oven or whatever, like it's my little mini escape. And because it just it removes the stresses of winning and losing, which
Yeah.
sometimes can be problematic. And again, sometimes you just don't want to care about winning and losing. You just want to accomplish a goal. You want that quick little
Yeah.
dopamine hit. You want the
I mean,
buzzes and the bells and whistles to go off.
sometimes you just want to play single player content, and I totally get that. There are players that enjoy that more because, as you know, whenever you're playing any multiplayer game, getting into a game that has a multiplayer aspect and has a lot of cards, and to kind of the kind of anxiety that just comes with all this information that you can either jump into or that will, it just feels overwhelming. I kind of get it because I've been learning Flesh and Blood now, so it's the same feeling.
No,
On the
and
one hand, you want to start and learn something new. At the other hand, you're kind of afraid and overwhelmed by the amount of things that you are here to learn and understand, and you're getting out of your comfort zone in order to learn something new and try to get all this information and kind of live with it. And the experience for any type of card game and the multiplayer aspect and the ladder aspect and all that is that in the beginning it's very, very difficult to get into. Like, card games are not easy games. They're not something that you pick up, you play on your couch, and then you move on. It's something that you really need to get into the ins and outs. You need to understand the interactions. You need to understand the sequencing. You need to understand the triggers. You need to understand a million other things. And there are still interactions that will surprise you. There are still cards and plays that will surprise you. You can read the cards as many times as you want to, but when you actually get into a game and you're playing against someone else, you kind of see how the cards work in the system, let's say, which is it's not for everybody. And that's why I kind of believe card games have always been kind of a niche and have been geared towards a specific audience. And it's a different audience than the typical, let's say, couch gaming type of person that buys a console and plays FIFA, Call of Duty, and all the big names. And it's a different audience. So yeah, I mean, this is something that we all need to kind of take into account. And some players just like I'm not saying that Rogue Mage is easy, because it's not, because there are some battles that get hard, and also depending on how you kind of progress and how you make the game easier or harder for yourself with all the things that you kind of accumulate throughout your run, you're able to progress to a certain extent and defeat stronger and stronger monsters and encounters, and then you kind of go back. And it has a nice little story around it, with Alzur and kind of the creation of the first Witchers and kind of the tribulations that he goes through and things that are happening there. So it's more for people that like a little bit of story, that like single player gameplay, and kind of like the roguelike aspect of it, that every run is different, instead of you taking the same deck to ladder and playing it over and over and mastering your craft as a card game player / ladder player.
So you're, again, and like the single player is a whole different experience, and you kind of play on your own time. You play it without any of the consequence of losing rank. There's no, it's challenging. It's the same thing. Like, Path of Champions in Legends of Runeterra is not easy. It is absolutely not easy. The first couple, steps in the journey are pretty straightforward. You're like, oh, is this all it is? It feels like playing a tutorial. And then all of a sudden, things get difficult. And then what's fascinating about those PvEs is, like, you get pissed off. Like, you kind of get, you're like, F this guy, like, I'm gonna. So then you have to work to level up your dude so that you're strong enough to face off against those roadblocks. And then when you finally complete one leg of the journey, you're like, thank you. Like, it's just so much more rewarding. Not like in ladder where, like, all right, another game of playing against, Assimilate, or another game of playing against, like, Oldham Control or whatever, which you are definitely a fan of now. From what you told me, you're so excited over the past couple of days of sending me messages of, like, Oldham's my bro, Oldham's my guy. So talk to me.
I've been playing a little bit of everything.
But you've kind of settled on Big Papa Oldham.
I started with him. It was my first deck that I played. I borrowed a Blitz deck from, I think it was Mr. Epic. So he brought his Oldham, or Ryan, I don't remember. And I started with that. Then I played a little bit of Briar. After that, I think I tried Fi once. And after that, I also got. I haven't played this one yet. The name is Dromai. I want to play it. Apparently, it's a high skill one. So that's one that I got, and yeah, I have 4 decks at the moment. They're all Blitz decks. And I went yesterday because today's Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday, Tuesday, to meet up with the Warsaw Flesh and Blood community, and there was like a judge. There was Dual Funnel there. You know him, one of the better players in Fab in Poland, and they pretty much showed me the ropes of the game, and we got this this starter deck also to play. But me and Ryan were already, because I went with Ryan, and I'm like, Ryan, let's go, let's because we went after work. We're like, Ryan, let's go play some Fab, after work, because we'll have time to actually jam some games. So he went with me to the meetup, and we played, I think, 3 or 4 games. First, we played with the starting deck. I don't remember what that starting hero is. It's like a ninja.
Is it Katsu?
Starts with an I. No.
Oh, Ira.
Ira. So yeah, we start with Ira. I like played 1 game. We pretty much milled ourselves, and nothing was really happening. We were just, here's a little bit of damage, here's a little bit of nothing, and it was kind of dun 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 dun. And then after that, we went back to playing our own decks. So first we played with he played with Chain, and that's a cool deck. Like playing cards from the Banish Zone, freaking amazing.
Chain was essentially, remember last episode, I think we were talking about how Dagon was the best deck that ever existed in Gwent, period. Chain was the best deck that ever existed in Flesh and Blood, period. It had no bad matchups. It was essentially 75 to 80% of the meta at a particular time. And then they banned one common. One common they banned, and it brought it down to a level where it was beatable, but it was still very good. Then they continued to ban things and change things, but everyone kept like, oh, well, is Chain really that good anymore? And then people were like, the good Chain players were like, let's find out, and kept winning tournaments. So it's a high skill cap hero, immensely high skill cap. At the Calling in Las Vegas, it was a Blitz tournament. I asked, like, again, I'm privileged to be able to play with national champions and Calling winners. Like, I'm within a testing group that has some of the best players in the world. And I asked them, and they're like, Chain is the best deck if you're willing to put in the work. So I started with Briar in the Blitz tournament. That was where I was going. And then I was like, let me just watch a Chain game. And I watched them play Chain, and I was like, this is insane. So I put in the work, and I played Chain at the Calling, and I went undefeated. And I went 6-0, but it was a team event, and my partners didn't always win. So as a team, we went 3-3, but I personally went 6-0. And now I'm just completely just into Chain. It's high skill cap. Like, it is the definition of high skill cap. Yeah.
Yeah, so we played that. I couldn't get through like all the arcane damage that he was doing to me, and I think that's pretty much what kind of won him the game. But he also like self-wounded himself a lot, so it was down to like the wire. But last round, he pretty much got me. He got me good. And after that, he played Briar, and I played Oldham, and I got him with Oldham.
Yeah.
Also was I had like 3 turns where it was like 8 damage, 10 damage, 10 damage. So he was just running out of cards, and it was funny to see kind of the moment where the game pivoted, because first he was applying a lot of pressure on me, and I had to be on the defense. And then there was a pivot, and we started I started kind of, packing punches. And once Oldhim starts, putting like cards together, applying a lot of frostbite, and getting this card that lets the next guardian attack action cost one less, you pretty much are getting into a state where you're very, very unstoppable. And yeah, I was talking to Dual Funnel yesterday, and we kind of agreed that the game is very, very well balanced in the state that it is right now, and that we're also right now, like, because they were all playing like the constructed version, so they had the beefy decks, they had the equipment in these slabs.
Yeah, baby.
Which when I looked at their play mats, which were like super nice, and the things in like the cards and slabs, I'm like, man, that's a lot of money on one table. All of them foiled, of course, and beautiful. And they're like, yeah, if you want to get into constructed like equipment, we try to borrow amongst each other to make it easier, because these things are the most expensive parts of the decks.
Yeah.
So easy, but if you want to get into it, like, let us know, because yeah, we'll get you on. They're also talking about the meta right now, that it's still kind of solving itself, because
It is. It's
I think
fresh.
it will. Yeah, it's fresh, and I'm kind of started following stuff related to the game. I'm kind of seeing that Oldhim is going to be good, like the frost related characters are going to be doing quite well. Heroes or characters?
All the heroes, yeah, but like the meta's in a state where new cards just came out and bans went live. So it's a complete sort of shakeup. And the beautiful part about this is that there's no online client, right? So there's no thousands and thousands of games being churned out.
That's what he also said.
Yeah. So, and it's all regional, because what your buddy like Duo Final says might not necessarily be true in the Canadian meta or the American meta. And even then, like so yesterday I recorded an episode of Instant Speed, and on it we had Hayden Dale, who's like a calling champion. He won Road to Nationals. He's just like one of the top players in the game. And we were just chatting about the meta and how regional it can be. And he was saying, and like I said, I'm like, look, it can be as specific as your own LGS. It can be as broad as your entire continent, but things change, because when you're going to Paris to play in the Pro Tour, you have a different game plan. It's the same thing as like in Gwent, when you have a deck and a testing group that tests deck on ladder. Your deck for ladder is not going to be your deck necessarily for a particular tournament. But it's opposite, because your deck that you're bringing to your regional is more like your tournament deck, where you know more or less what's going to happen. You know what the strategies may be, the targeting, the this, the that. So you're going to prepare for that. But when you're going into a broader scope of the world, that like the people who played in the New Jersey Pro Tour, they may have been all-stars in their little regional like areas, but once they got thrown into the pool, it was like, you're just a guppy and these sharks are going to just eat you up. And that's kind of what happened. It was like, we've had the discussion a lot about how there's obvious bias for myself and for the people that I talk to, because many of us are North American based. Many of our tournaments are going to be within North America. And we were just saying, I'm like, yeah, I wonder how New Jersey is going to play out. And my buddy Tan and Grace, another caster for Fab, said, he's like, I think the Europeans are going to come in and just absolutely rail on everybody, because I don't know if they're more prepared for it, and North America is a little bit more isolated because they just know, like, and that was basically what happened. Like, the Euros came in, and I think the best we did, I think it was like, we had a Canadian in the top 4, like Isaac Kroot, who plays out of Harry Tarantula, where his shirt is from.
Nice.
Isaac Kroot is like my kryptonite. This freaking kid. I finally beat him. I beat him. I have to say this. I know he's not going to listen to this, but Isaac Kroot is one of the best players. He's one of the top card game players in Magic, in Flesh and Blood, whatever. In all of my journeys that I've ever played against him, I've never beaten him. And he looks like he's super young. I think he's in his 20s. Very quiet, very, nice young guy. And
Those
every
are the
time,
best.
yeah,
Those are the best.
like
You don't expect them.
I call him the Iceman. He's essentially Isaac Crute the Iceman. He says nothing, he does nothing, like he just plays and he beats you, and that's what he does. And he's the nicest kid. Anyway, I never beaten him in any of the major tournaments I've played against him. RTNs, Pro Quests, everything. My victory is that I've made him laugh. That was my victory. So we're playing a draft. I'm like, it was a Monday draft amidst a Road to National season. And I said, I'm like, I'm going to go play at the Harry T draft on a Monday. I'm like, how many people could possibly be there? Like, it's a Monday, you know? Usually these are on weekends, people go. So I talked to my buddy Dave Rude, who runs Harry Tarantula. I said, Dave, who's going to be at this draft? How many people registered? He's like, oh, there's only 8 registered. So I was like, oh, easy pickings. I'm going to go score myself a cold foil. I show up. Ultimately, I think there was 13 people who showed up.
Yeah.
12 people who showed up. I'm like, okay, 12 people. Sounds cool. So 12 people, Isaac's there, and I'm like, God damn it. All right, fine. So the way that the tournament system worked is it didn't give us 2 pods of 6. It made us in a pod of 12 for some reason. They said this is how you're supposed to do it, so we did it. And I got paired up against Isaac in round 1. So we're all drafting, and meanwhile, Dave's like, oh, it resorted the pairings. So these are not your actual pairings, so don't worry, Flake, you don't have to play against Isaac. I was like, thank God. They resort the pairings, I have to play against Isaac. They're like, everybody started laughing. They're like, everybody got a new pair except for Flake. Flake still has to play against Isaac. And I was like, oh my God. I beat him, and my reward for beating him was to play against a multiple ProQuest winner, this guy named Sean Dollywall, who is another Pro Tour player. So I had to beat him, and then I got to the round 3, and I played against Icelander. It was Sean Dollywall's little cousin, and I beat him, and I felt terrible because
Icelander is really cool. That's a really cool.
Icelander is amazing, but I'm just glad that for you are finding that you're like, oh no, this is my guy. So I want to show you something real quick.
I think it's very easy in this game. Like I also talked with Wolfano. He's like, once you pick your favorite like class, you stick to it, right?
Yeah.
And you get move stuff in between guardians, ninjas, and others. But when you stick to one, when you choose one, you stick to one. It was the first one I played, and I just like that he has some aspects of control and like messing up your opponent's plays by forcing them to discard stuff, by applying frostbite to make their stuff like, more expensive. But also, when he smacks, he has that hammer for a reason there, right? He just goes in and beats the living crap out of people, which I just like. And then they have to, oh my God, and you have to like, I love the setup in the game. It was very hard for me to learn it. It was very hard for me to like transition my mentality from the Magic mentality where like play a land, go. It's like, no, I need to think about what I'm pitching, for how much resource I need to be managing those resources. Based off of that, I need to be thinking, okay, the fusing cards with earth, with ice. It's just, there's so much complexity within the game that I felt like a breath of fresh air on the one hand. On the other hand, I felt like I was really experiencing something new in the card game genre, which I haven't for quite a long time.
Yeah,
I think the last time was when we, started working on single player Gwent. So that was kind of like, oh, this gameplay is totally different. The
resource system for Flesh and Blood is incredible. I think it's very smart. It's very dynamic. The logic that a lot of the top players have is that there are no bad hands, there are only bad players. And that rings true, because a good player will take a bad hand and make something out of it. I'm not saying that your hands are going to be spectacular, but I'm so glad that you've come around and you've turned that corner, because a lot of new players are initially not wowed by the game because they're playing the basic decks where the equipment blocks for 1. It doesn't do anything too special. The weapons are very basic. Once you start fleshing out new characters, new interesting cards, cards that do fun stuff, that do unique things, that's where you start realizing that the heroes are not necessarily just unique. They have like play style, an ideology, a way to look through them and really identify with how they play. Like you mentioned chain and how complex chain can be, and you're saying that, like having chain played against you where they have to accumulate blood debt and do things like that, where those are punishing, like it's incredible. Like chain, that's why chain is so high skill cap, because as the game progresses, it's like you're continuously injecting your hero with adrenaline, and like you have to release that energy somehow, otherwise he'll just hurt himself. And it's a really, really cool aspect. This is the box that I'm building to give to you. And it has a
damn, bro, that's a lot of cards.
There's plenty more. This is an official tournament Flesh and Blood deck box. I have 2 of them. I got 2 of them, so I'm gonna give you one of them. My other one is over there.
God.
And I'm filling it with all kinds of extras that I'm gonna bring to you. But if you say that you're an Oldhim stan, if you're committed to Oldhim, I'm gonna go through my binder, and I'm gonna find you a Winter's Whale, like the Ice Hammer. I'm gonna get.
I have that.
Oh, you got
that.
Oh yeah, it's not an expensive card.
I got a foil of it.
A cold foil or a rainbow foil?
I need to check.
You'll know if it's cold foil.
I don't know what's the difference.
Oh.
I don't know what's the difference between rainbow and cold foil. I don't get it.
So cold foils, I think I've got some over here. I also.
Oh no, I don't have. I have Titan's Fist cold foil.
Like, I don't know if you can see, but this is a cold foil of a equipment. It just looks much more metallic. It's like it's much more metallicized. They don't curl. They're just much more exceptionally rare. Versus like a rainbow foil is just like a standard. Like it doesn't look. You see, it like doesn't look as
more colorful. Yeah, colorful. So yeah, I don't have whale or whatever it's called. I have Titan's Fist cold foil, and the let's say the Oldhim armory promo of Oldhim, because I only have the young version, but I also got the old version.
I have a adult Oldhim cold foil signed by James White, and that is
nice.
Yeah, I can't give you that one. I'm sorry.
No. You keep that.
But I'm so glad that you're getting into it. But I'm building you this nice little care package for you and Ryan, and I guess for Repec, you guys can go through what's in here and share it. But I have so much. I mean, I'm not saying it's garbage, but I've a lot of bulk, and rather than put it in a box, like I keep 5 copies of every card. And I know I only need 3, but sometimes I have so many times that our friends were like, do you have 1 copy of this or 1 copy of this? I'm like, yes, I do. So these are for you guys because I want you guys to enjoy it. But yeah.
I kind of miss this. I kind of miss this in Magic. Like people in Magic also used to share cards more amongst each other, and then they became more greedy, I feel like. And with Flesh and Blood, I feel like this community is still shaping, and everybody's just just helping the one that has something that the other wants, they just give it to them and they share stuff. It's something that makes me even more kind of, into the just playing the game in Flesh and Blood, right?
Yeah, it's
just so good.
It's the
good stuff about humanity that you don't see very often.
I know, and this is something that doesn't ring true until you realize what you're missing, in a sense, because there was no greater joy for me than Saturdays driving downtown, picking up Alias and Alias V and her husband, and driving to face-to-face games to go do a Magic draft or go do Standard, and then afterwards going to A&W and having a burger with my friends. Like that was my absolute favorite thing. And we knew there were certain players that would be there that we knew were like, oh, there's so-and-so, there's so-and-so. And there were certain players that were there that were like, oh, there's so-and-so, like, F that loser. But no, we weren't like that. But in Flesh and Blood right now, like, when I go to Harry Tarantula for a draft or a tournament, I'm like, I know I'm going to see these people, and it's going to be a blast. And I know a lot of people, try to be nice to me because of who I am within Flesh and Blood. But there's a lot of people who I knew before I was anybody in Flesh and Blood. When my first time there, there were people that were at the draft on Monday whom I had not seen since 6 months prior because they left the game to focus on other things, and they got lured back in. They're like, I have to play this again. Like, it's just so good. And seeing them again, but these are players where I haven't seen them in so long. They're like, so what have you been up to since like I stopped playing? I'm like, well, I'm on their casting roster now, and I'm going to France, and I'm doing all this stuff. They're like, holy hell! Like, I remember when I met you, we were playing, and you were telling me you were a card game player, card game caster, and I'm glad that it worked out. Like, those are the kinds of things, and it's like you don't get it.
It's amazing.
But new cards came out in Gwent, and that's always super awesome. And I want to just dig into a little bit to that. We didn't really have a roadmap for this particular episode,
No.
but part of it is because there's so much going on. So I think that it's fine to just tackle it. But I played yesterday. I did some Thrive related stuff, and I wanted to dig into something specifically about the cards eventually, because on the Reddit thread, somebody's like, I just want to hear Flake rant about adding more scenarios to the game. This is from Actuator Opposite 1624, and I do want to talk about scenarios. I absolutely do want to talk about scenarios.
Yes, you do.
You know I do, because I do not like cards of that nature, like build around framework style cards.
It's because of your Star Wars PTSD.
Not only that, I'm not. Look, of course that influences it. I'm just not a fan of, like, for instance, Star Wars was the most egregious in terms of this, because the card literally said the cards would tell you what you can and cannot play, and it told you, like, this starts on the board, this plays this, and this is how you progress in the game. So frankly, people were like, it's like having the card was called an objective, and the objective was like, you need to go to this restaurant, and people figured out what the best way to drive there was. Like, it's just like, well, you take a left here, you go here, you go here. That's the most efficient way to do it. So people would basically build the most efficient route to get to this, to complete their objective, to have massive bonuses throughout the rest of the game. Quests in Hearthstone are the same way. Quests start in your hand. Same thing like objectives. Objectives started on the board. So the way that those decks were essentially built, I wasn't a fan of them, because it really took a lot of the deck design agency out of it. I find scenarios are not as egregious because they don't start in your hand. So you're not guaranteed to have them. You're not guaranteed to benefit or profit by them, whereas the other games are more egregious. I'm not ranting as much as I want to explain to people and be clear that it's the style of cards, much like people do not like artifacts, or people do not like enchantments or things like that.
Counter spells.
Exile
cards.
Bingo. Anybody who doesn't like these style cards, it's the same way. I don't like scenarios, not because of the power level of the cards, because there are cards with immense power levels as well. But I don't like the card because what it does to shape metas and shape deck building, and maybe that's just me, but a card with such a huge payoff typically has very minimal amounts of latitude to build around them optimally. Therefore, you are kind of removing a lot of creativity, a lot of variety amidst the meta. Now, that's not to say that you have to play them, because in other card games, like especially in Star Wars, there were no decks that played that were non-objective. Once that type of card was printed, people were like, this is the only way you can play this game if you want to win. Scenarios to me felt the same way.
Okay.
Like, again, I like the design of them are okay. First of all, let's just also rewind a little bit and say, like, did Gwent copy all these other? No, we're not going to go down that route. But it was just funny. But scenarios are. I think that scenarios. I mean, do they hurt the game? I don't think they necessarily hurt the game. They hurt the deck design aspect.
Maybe they I can agree that they kind of limit you in terms of deck design, or they influence deck design in a sense that you kind of feel like you have to run them within your deck to some extent, and they and kind of your deck building kind of circles around it, because you need to be hitting the things in order to progress them, right? So those things need to happen. But I mean, don't we have cards like that in any other card game that we also play. We kind of do.
Well, for instance, I mean, I'm trying to think. Like build around cards typically are win conditions in their own right.
Yeah.
Um,
And this is not a win condition. This is something that
it's a
provides
round
either.
win condition. I
It's a
mean,
round win condition. Yeah.
like,
It provides you tempo in a given round. It provides you, I don't know, it gives you gas,
yeah,
right?
I'm not a listen. I'm my
I know.
no, but my criticism of the card is not necessarily the power level of being a win
Hmm.
condition. It's that if let's say if you're playing Haunt, you're like, okay, I got it has to be Death Wish themed, so that's fine. So what are the best Death Wish cards? What are the ones that have the most utility? And then you build around that. Same thing with like trap related decks or not trap related. Sorry, Feign Death, and stuff
Hmm.
like that. You got to play elves, and
Yeah.
there's a little bit more, to it than that. I think that out of all the examples I mentioned, I think that Gwent might be the least aggressive in terms of pushing people into corners to build certain ways. But then again, I mean, that doesn't say a whole lot because if you're playing Gettyneth, you're going to have to play the Cultist package, and
Yeah.
then what's the other element to it? I just don't like scenarios because putting a scenario into a deck is not just putting a scenario into a deck, it's putting a scenario and all the best support cards for it, which then kind of limits it. It's kind of like a paint by numbers, build your own adventure kind of thing. And
I kind of feel like it depends on what you're actually playing. I think Squirtle is not the best example because
no,
Squirtle has like
yeah,
multiple things that you can kind of go
but
into.
Masquerade Ball feels
Yeah,
pretty much kind of,
but that's only in ball decks, right?
yeah. Well, I mean, Masquerade Ball is a build around deck. You got to put all your aristocrats and you got to have the
Yeah,
poison support. Okay, so
yeah.
that's kind of in there. Gettyneth,
Which was kind of the plan for the flavor of the archetype, right? They're
yeah,
all
I
they're
love.
all like Voldaren epicures or something like that
Yeah.
you would have in MTG. So aristocrat vampires everywhere.
In other card games, I'm trying to wonder what would be the most build around cards. Like I'm thinking Magic wise, like I guess like Ascent of the Second Sun. I think that was the one from
Yeah.
Magic. Like that was a win condition in itself, so you had to build around that. But the build around for that
Yeah.
is stall, removal, life gain, get to that card draw. Like that was basically how that deck was
Yeah.
played.
In
Um,
Azorius, it's the in modern Azorius, it's Teferi you build around Teferi,
yeah,
right? Teferi is
yeah.
your win con.
Well,
Or Jace.
Teferi's kind of like the like he's the
The nail
dude.
in the coffin.
Well, he's the nail in the coffin, definitely. But like once he's on the board, he's like the DJ at the party. Like
Yeah.
if unless you unplug him, like
Yeah.
he's gonna be choosing the music, So,
Yeah, exactly. You're stuck with it. If you like
um,
it or if you don't like it.
but the new cards, have been playing with them. I played a couple hours yesterday, had a good time, and
How are the plants doing?
I played. That's what I played. I played Thrive. I wanted to
That's
see
what I
the
thought.
new Man Trap, see what that was all about. Learning how it works. I like because I think when it eats, it double triggers Thrive, and I was like, this is a very very powerful mechanic. I thought that the ranged row element to Man Trap was a little bit weak, but I think it was merely because I was just building the deck. Like I didn't put too much thought into it. Like I started with playing the Gurnikora, like the Fruits of Isgith
Mhm.
leader ability, and I threw in the new scenario. I played 2 games or with the new scenario, 3 games with the new scenario. I won 2 out of 3 games, but I thought that the scenario was trash. I
Mhm.
didn't think it was that good, but I honestly also believe that I just wasn't exploring it enough to maximize it. And once I got that out of the deck, I put in like, once you remove 14 provisions in a 11 provision hero, you're like, wow, I have a lot of room to improve this deck. And once that occurred, it was a lot better. But Thrive is fun. Thrive is just slamming monster boys down on the board, fat boys, and if you're a half decent player and can relatively read your opponent's hand, you're in a good spot because you know when to drop your She Who Knows, you know when to drop your big boys, and it was a lot of fun. It was honestly, it felt like Crimson Curse or pre-Crimson Curse a little bit when playing playing fat boy monsters and dropping like your 12 point spear tip and then eating it with Ozra later, and you felt like a total champ. I'm like, this is what I wanted. I wanted a 3-card round 3. I want to drop a 13 or 14 point Ozral. I want to drop a Griffin for 9, and I want to drop a ghoul for like 10 or something like that. Like that's what I wanted. That's the nastiness that really got me like horny for old school Fat Boy monsters. But yeah, that's basically my exploration. I got absolutely gooned. I think I got gooned by status effect cultists in Nilfgaard, which was pretty cool.
Yeah. I'm still getting into it. I've been playing a little bit of Harmony, but still figuring it out because there's a lot of cool decks that you can kind of get into. There's like and I want to try Renfrey also in all these decks, but I'm yet to do that. But to be honest, I haven't had the time since we launched yesterday.
Yeah.
And with all this stuff going on, the last couple of weeks was just crazy.
That feels crazy. But like the new cards again, I will always pine for more. I will always pine for more. But if these 20 some odd cards are, listen, I mean, it's just it's the fact of the matter. I mean, I understand the limitations of the resources and such that can be put into the game to create and hire and commission new art and animation. It's a lot, Art for 23 cards is a lot easier to, or 25 cards, or however many it is a lot easier to digest than a set of 90. I honestly, in my opinion, I just feel like it's not sustainable. As impactful as these cards are, 6 months, 20 some odd cards. I understand the limitations. I understand where the roadblocks are. I just hope that it's something that might change down the road. But it is what it is, right?
The previous one was Forgotten Treasures was 21. I think this one's 27, and yeah, that's kind of the idea. Once a couple months, a couple more cards to kind of keep things going. Plus, keeping things in a way that we're doing monthly updates and also bringing stuff back up into to what it is, and kind of making the cards and the archetypes more playable. Yeah.
I also want to just briefly address one thing that actually really lit a fire under my ass, because it is ultimately like super pathetic. You don't have to comment on this at all.
Okay.
If you don't want to. This past weekend, I wasn't at. Obviously, I wasn't casting the event. I wasn't watching it either. I was out and about. I went to the zoo on Saturday, which was awesome.
I saw.
Good friend of mine.
Go to the zoo.
So there's a side plot to that. My buddy Charmer, a caster as well, casts Runeterra, casts Flesh and Blood. He was in Canada for Canada Day, which was July 1st, with his wife and his 2 kids. And his wife really likes the zoo, so they go to all different zoos wherever they go. And I've never been to the zoo. And there's a reason why I don't like going to the zoo, because I don't like caged animals. It really breaks my heart. But I was like, well, I don't get to see them very often, so let's just go. Let's just see what it's about. So I went to the zoo, and there were parts where, like seeing the rhinos and all the space they had, and the hippos and the pools that they were having fun in and whatever. That was like, oh, all right. Like, they seem like they're having a good time. I love rhinos. It's one of my favorite animals. Like, they're just these massive tanks. So I actually got to see rhinos for the first time in my life, and it was amazing. Like, I just wanted to sit there and watch them eat. Like, that's all I wanted to do. Like, they're magnificent. But then you see like the monkeys and the orangutans and like the polar bears. It was like 30 some odd degrees outside, and
I feel bad for those animals.
The polar bears were just hiding in the shade, and that broke my heart. But ultimately, that's not what we're talking about. I like zoos are.
I hate zoos. Free the animals. Don't do zoos for people. It's good for once you're a little kid to go once, but don't go there, because that's not where they should be.
I know, and like
in the story.
Yeah. So
yeah, but let's go, because you're there's something there.
Yeah, there is something there. The what I want to discuss is not why I wasn't casting. That's a whole different story. But the reason why I want to talk about it is like, I saw all kinds of garbage and complete buffoonery, like the absolute 3-ring circus that were morons calling Specie a traitor because he plays other games. First of all,
Don't get me started on that. That's so bad.
That's why I'm gonna do it, and you don't have to,
Okay.
because I can say these things.
I will comment on it also.
Oh, if
I
you
will
want to,
comment on it also.
by all means. So here's my deal, and I've said it. I've dealt with this too, because anytime that when I used to get hired to do Mythgard tournaments, like I would get paid money to pay my rent to live in this, this nerd kingdom. I need to pay rent. This is my career. So I would take jobs casting other games. The second that those were done, I would put it like a couple days later, I would fire up a stream and people would come in and be like, oh, why don't you go play those other games, you traitor? It's like, get the F out. So we're just going to be very, very, very curt, short, and to the point. If you're one of those... Sorry,
yeah.
go for it.
Go. No, I don't want to cut you off now. Like, I'll let you, like... I don't want to ruin the thought train.
Sure. No, the thought train has been brewing and chugging for a while now, for years, frankly, about this whole topic. So here it is. Spessie's an awesome human being. Every interaction I've had with him has been honest. It's been sincere. Him and I have a lot of conversations privately because he's somebody who wants to get more into casting, and I have had the joy and the luck of being a caster for many years. I have a lot of experience, and I'm more than happy to help him, give him advice, and just help, guide him a little bit when he needs a little bit of guidance. He's an awesome person, a great, great personality, a great spirit. Let him do whatever he wants, whatever the hell he wants. If you are one of those losers who are in a chat with absolutely nothing better to do than to crap all over somebody who is living their best life, exploring whatever the hell they want to explore, playing whatever the hell they want to play, you are a loser. And I'm absolutely confident in that fact. And I don't care if you want to call... And people will be like, Flake's so negative. Yeah, about this, abso-freaking-lutely I'm negative. Because there is nothing positive to squeeze out of somebody who is crapping on somebody for doing whatever the hell they want. So, for all of you losers, because there's no other way to do it, who are calling Spessie a traitor, who are calling Spessie, you telling him to go back to whatever, get bent and go open the door and see that it's a broad, beautiful world out there with so many things to enjoy. Nobody eats cornflakes their entire life and nothing but it. People want variety, they want other things, and if he's found joy doing something else, he's also found joy in casting Gwent, as I do, as many other people do. So if you are one of those people who are crapping on another person, not necessarily specifically Spessie, but in this case specifically Spessie, please go reevaluate your view on life, because they don't owe you anything. They can do whatever the hell they want, and they did a good job, and Spessie did a good job casting the event. So get bent and get a fucking life, you loser. That's what I'm going to say. Easy. That's it. That's it. And call me out, post it on Reddit, do whatever the hell you want. This has happened before to me where I had choice words for people who did some bad things, and people posted on Reddit, and I don't give a crap, because I am totally okay in calling those people losers, because that's what they are.
I mean, if we look into what's happening here, the whole thing looks, in my opinion, this way. Like, our community cannot accept the fact that our content creators, streamers, casters are trying different things and are playing different things. Like, even when I post things about Flesh and Blood, MTG, I think twice before I do it, because I know that I'll get instant criticism. Why aren't you playing Gwent? Like, that's your job. That's what you're known for. I am not exclusive to that. And same way, Spessie is not exclusive to Gwent. He can try different things. And he doesn't owe us anything in this sense. What he owes is a lot to himself, and whatever makes him happy, whatever makes him grow as a caster, streamer, content creator, he can choose the path that he wants. And he doesn't have to only be exclusive to CDPR and Gwent casting, because he can have, his own, pretty much, his own life and do whatever he wants. And it applies to Flake, it applies to Shinmiri, it applies to Sealy, it applies to Thea, Lionheart. You can do whatever you want, because that's the beauty of it. Like, we're all here, as I feel also this podcast has shown, more than just people working on Gwent. And we're not exclusive to Gwent. We can do other things outside of that. And I feel like it's time to like broaden your perspectives and not be looking through binoculars and only seeing one thing, but seeing like in your peripheral that there is a lot of other things that can be going on in your life and other things that you can be doing, instead of just being, hell-bent and stuck to one path. Because I feel like it's bad. And it's bad also for people to feel like they're entitled to tell other people what they should or should not be doing.
Yeah.
And calling them traitors for, having fun, trying something different. And, and especially has shown that he's able to cast on a high level. You have shown that you're able to cast on a high level and prepare in a way where you can, take the game apart and talk about all the plays and anticipate plays and, cast on an awesome level and also do things differently. Like, you can play Flesh and Blood, you can cast Flesh and Blood, but you can also do Gwent related stuff. You're not exclusive to that. Same goes for Speci. He can do snap contests. Snap casting, snap creation when it comes to content creation. Do things that he wants to. And he can go back and also cast Gwent on a super high level. And like you said, he's an awesome dude. I feel like he speaks his mind. His heart is pretty much on his hands. So, you totally understand what the guy has to say. He's just freaking amazing. And I've only met him once in person when he was in Warsaw. Maybe I don't stay in touch with the casters as much. Maybe Flake is the only exception where we talk a lot. But we're like brothers from another mother. That's a whole different story. But I feel like, he doesn't owe us anything, and don't hold him accountable to that. Don't force him to be, stuck to Gwent and he can't do anything, and don't make him feel bad about it. Because all these bad comments that I saw, it's just like, why would you do that? Why would you even care? Like, why are you defending him? Like, we don't need that from you.
Well,
like, we totally don't need that from you.
And he's too kind and too considerate to address these, and I'm sure the way that it needs to be addressed. So I'm going to do it for him and tell all of you losers to go fly a kite. Because honestly,
I was waiting for fly a kite.
Yeah, well, that's not what I wanted to say, but that's what we're going to say. But ultimately, that's just the fact of the matter. There's no the entitlement and the absolute fenced in seclusion that certain people have, that there nothing else exists other than what they want to exist and what they are privy to. There's a wide world of card games out there and other things to enjoy other than Gwent, many of which have been there long before Gwent, many of which are just as good, if not better than Gwent in certain cases. And you know what? Let people enjoy whatever the fuck they want. And if you don't like that, then get bent. And again, I have no qualms about calling this BS out, because it is absolutely cowardly garbage. And and if you feel otherwise, you can message me and we can have a chat. And I would happily have a video call with you so you can say it to my face, so that it doesn't have to be hidden behind any kind of text on any kind of platform or Twitter or Reddit or whatever, because that's where most of this stuff happens. When it's faceless on a keyboard in a Twitch chat or whatever. Losers. All of you people who think that way, losers.
There should be internet passports where you have to put in your real name and your last name, and
that's dangerous.
Show a copy of your ID.
That's dangerous. All I'll say is that
I know it is, but put your money where your mouth is. Like, if you're that type of person that is one of those keyboard warriors, I just want you to put your money where your mouth is.
There are people who are not even keyboard warriors. There are streamers who have said some things about me, and when I've confronted them privately, they all backpedal, because again, it's a different story when you got to tell the person to their face what you want to say.
It's
And
like, come on. We always say at the end of this podcast, just be kind to one another. It's
but
very easy.
no,
It's so easy. It's so hard.
Of course. But again, certain people need to be told because otherwise they just feel like they're getting out of the way. Spessy, I love you, dude. And I'm going to be
Yeah, we
seeing
love you,
Spessy
man.
in Warsaw because I'm going to be in Warsaw in I will be in Warsaw the weekend of August.
August 6th.
Yeah. And if all goes well, Pavel, I believe that I've been approved to be there on like the Wednesday or Thursday or something like that. So, Gdańsk Blue Jeans road trip.
Blue Jeans.
So we're doing it,
There
baby.
we go. There we go.
We'll go swing by, pick up Spessy somewhere, and then we'll film a like a rap video. Hey, maybe Shinmiri will be there. We'll hike the whole band back together and just have a good time.
Full IRL stuff.
Yeah. All right. That's what I wanted to get off my chest. And people have asked me why Shinmiri and I weren't casting the event, and that's a whole other story. But I don't know to what degree we're going to dig into that this episode, if even at all. But nonetheless, if anyone's asking, we'll just put it this. I still adore Gwent. Still adore Vlad. Still adore Pavel. I still adore everybody. And I still hope to, in the future, work Gwent events. And I'm sure a lot of people don't give two hoots about me, but I don't care about what about that. This is my career, so I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want.
Nice.
Shall we proceed to the mailbag, my friend?
Of course.
All right.
More than happy to. Welcome back to the mailbag, where we take your questions from Reddit and Twitter that you sent to us. Thank you for the questions, first of all. The first one, Flake, start us off because you have everything open.
Yeah, so here's the first one that I thought was actually a very good question. It's from Sufficient Loan 3270 on Reddit. The question being, how does this game grow in America? Is it always niche to Europe? American player here hopes someday to see some Americans in the open. Now, there have been North Americans, I believe, that have been in the open. Red Rain has been on the tournament scene, but I believe it is just Red Rain. And as a North American representative over the course of 5 seasons now, I think. Are we in season 5? Season 4? Season 4. I think it's season 4 of
I think it was
Gwent Masters. No. But he was there in season 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Season 3 for
and
sure.
Earlier on. If either way, I feel you on this, because many years ago, people like myself, Mark Theus, and No Control put together what was called the Wild Hunt tournaments, the Wild Hunt Championship, which we kind of positioned it as a North American championship. It was a LAN tournament. A lot of good players played in it. A lot of awesome people were there. And it became like this gathering. It was more so a little bit of like a celebration, a gathering. The games were the games. It was great. We had a good time. There was casting. We created like a belt for the winner, which was the first one was ever was won by Trinet back in the day. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, creating a North American presence, I mean, we tried it. It was good. There are North American players, plenty. I just feel like certain games just have better, like the problem is that when you're playing a card game, first of all, Gwent is very different, and if you're in a North American landscape, you're already knee deep in FNMs and Magic everywhere, Pokemon, Digimon, all Yu-Gi-Oh, incredibly popular here. Hearthstone has a massive North American presence with like a tournament scene. It's hard for it to bubble to the top when there's so much competition. In Europe, I don't know why in Europe it's so popular. Is it because CDPR is located in Poland? I believe
it's just because CDPR is more popular here in Europe, and also in places like Russia and stuff like that. So I think that is pretty much why it is more seen here than it is in the States.
So if I were to give some advice, and I don't Pavel, you can talk about, CDPR strategy or angles towards America, but my suggestion is not a light one by any means. It's not an easy one, because nobody can just on a whim create a massive tournament for a game that may not have the same momentum and popularity as others do. However, we got a crap load of people who traveled far and wide across America and Canada to come to Philadelphia to play Wild Hunt twice.
Yeah, I
We did Wild
remember.
Hunt 1 and
Yeah.
2. And Wild Hunt 1 was where I got discovered by CDPR and was offered a job hosting Gwent Challenger 5, which then became a permanent casting job, which essentially was a launch pad for my career. So frankly, if I were to say that there was a pivotal moment in my life and career that really set things in motion for me to be where I am now, it was putting Gwent Wild Hunt 1 on in America. And it was no easy task, and it was expensive, and it was a lot of effort, but it was so worth it. Not just for me personally, but for everybody there to come together. There was amazing human beings that all got together to have a great time. But will we ever see that again? I'm not doing it. So if you want to, I would be happy to.
There was I remember there was a big following, and I think Wild Hunt was the place where that kind of put everybody together. Also, like Wentelman back in the day, I think most of the guys there were kind of NA based, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was thriving there at that time, but never to such an extent as it was on the European scene. And I feel like maybe if more resources from our end were put there, things would look a little bit different. And I also feel like maybe if that community, because I feel like all the major like content creators like Pumpkin and stuff like that, No Control that we had back in the day, all those dudes kind of fell off the map at one point, started doing different things. And it's kind of been like that story where we had a very strong presence, and then when it kind of shifted, it is kind of a smaller presence right now. And will it ever change? I hope, but it depends if someone will kind of, pick up the slack in the community, I would say, and then get more recognition from us. I feel like with people like the Salty Captain right now, it's kind of happening with On the Path, the Witcher podcast, like we more visibility, and people like Brett also there. So kind of the NA community growing for stuff that is Witcher/Gwent related might take it to a next level moving forward. But those are just like speculations on my end. So we kind of have to wait and see how everything evolves.
No, I don't. I do not disagree. My only concern is like if the NA scene didn't get revved up way back when, like when Gwent was at its peak of popularity, it's going to be tough to do it again. However, that isn't to say that you can't create a LAN tournament or create a scene or create a crew or whatever. There are a lot of good NA players out there. Shinmiri being one of them. I don't know how many are out there, but I mean, let's be real. If I wanted to, top 64, if I had enough time and effort and training, I could probably do it. It's not easy. It's absolutely not easy. And there's a lot of other things going on in North America card game wise that it's hard for Gwent to, dip a toe in. Not to mention, let's be real, there's no tournament scenes here. There's no smaller circuit, which is so important. I mean,
I feel like it's also a lack of like bigger teams and stuff like that. All the big teams are European based, and they kind of are slowly getting more or less the monopoly on figuring out the meta, bringing people together, and stuff like that. So maybe that's also like a deciding factor.
Honestly,
For sure it is.
I don't think that teams really have that much impact. In all honesty, I mean, this might just be me, but I don't feel like teams really do a whole lot other than create an environment for themselves to play test amidst each other. And some release meta reports, sure, but like, what does that do for drumming up the support or the hype within a particular region? Like, it's not like these teams are holding camps, where people can come and help or what. It's just a bunch of people in a Discord channel. Like, let's be real. Like, Team Aretusa doesn't do anything. They don't. It's the fact. Like, I'm not. I was in it, and I asked. I said, "What do we do here?" And they're like, "Well, we're kind of a hangout." I was like, "Okay, well, nothing's really going on. Like Team Aretusa used to have a very well structured, but a lot of the competitive elements to it are gone. And there are some teams out there that literally just recruit everybody off the top 100 of a ladder that they can, so that when a tournament occurs, they can say, "Hey, that's our guy, that's our dude." It's like, okay, cool, like it's your dude, but it's great. Like it is what it is, and fortunately, that's the case. But I would love to see, like other card games have regional tournaments. They have like a traveling circus, as it were, of major events. Like in Flesh and Blood, they're the callings. They have a calling, 1 or 2 every month that go from city to city. They're major events. People go out to play it. In Magic, it's the same thing. You have like Grand Prix and like Pro Tour qualifiers and stuff like that. Gwent doesn't have that. Even Hearthstone had the Hearthstone Championship Tour, which was basically various lands where you go, and depending on how you place, you earn points for their system or however it was. For Gwent, that doesn't exist. They don't do traveling lands. They never did. We had to do those on our own. That's what Wild Hunt was. I feel like if there was something like that in North America, you might start seeing a resurgence of North American interest in the game. But yeah, the beautiful part is that you can just log in on your computer and play wherever the hell you are. America, an airplane, the toilet, wherever you want to be, you can play some Gwent.
True that. Yeah, I feel like it's a hard one. I feel like still at first kind of starts off from the community and then it gets more recognition. In our case, it's hardly ever that. Yeah, but we never did like any regional stuff. The only tournaments that we kind of support are the ones that are community, and it's only with like in-game resources and stuff like that. But it's a whole different topic, whole different thing that we could totally get into. I think it's a long discussion.
All right, you next up?
Next up, what was the most busted card in Black Sun PTR? Do you remember?
Black Sun PTR? I didn't do the Black Sun PTR. I'm not gonna lie.
You didn't do the Black Sun
I
PTR.
saw the cards in the list and whatever. I'm not a good deck builder. I'm just not. So PTRs for me are not very. It would do no justice to the PTR itself. So I wasn't gonna waste time just being in there slapping new cards together and getting dumpstered by the other better players that were in the PTR. It wouldn't do anyone any help. So I couldn't tell you what the most busted card in the PTR was. I know that I've only played with like a few of the new cards, but Sir Scratch-A-Lot felt really broken. I don't want to say broken. Yeah. It felt very strong.
Shiniri pointed that one out for sure.
I don't want to say that it's busted, because the word broken is used way too often and way too liberally. It's a very strong card, because frankly, it like Sir Scratch-A-Lot can be killed with could be locked, can be whatever, but the first time you drop it on the board, it sucks because it has immunity. But I understand why it has immunity, because you want to be able to at least have a chance to use the ability of it at least once before it becomes interactable. But I think that card is exceptionally strong, and I think that card it's a 4 for 8 now. I can see that card going becoming a 4 for 10. I think that's likely where that is headed. That's just my prediction on the card. But if Thrive doesn't become strong, if Thrive is just the flash in the pan, it's a very simple deck to pilot, a very simple deck to build. But that doesn't mean it's necessarily the best. So I think that if Thrive becomes super popular and kind of is really a tier 1 or whatever, I think that's the card that might get looked at. However, if Thrive is not that powerful, why are we going to kind of nerf a card that is really one of the few bastions of hope of a deck beating a tier 1 deck? So
no. Yeah, I think Scratch-A-Lot is a good example here.
Love that card. Love it. Oh, here's a nice one. This one's from Cheech96, which is funny because my dad used to call me Chooch. Like, hey, Chooch. I don't know why. It's an Italian thing, but
sounds very Italian.
Yeah, anytime like I had to have friends over or whatever, my dad'd be like, "Who's this Chooch?" I'm like, I don't know what it means, but anyways. So the question is, Renfree is so cool. Do you plan on making additional cards with a 25 unit restriction? I like when cards have certain like part of the card's ability is to limit deck building options. I think that is a cool aspect of card gaming. I think some of the first experience I ever had with something like this was the old school Reno Jackson in Hearthstone, the one where basically told you like if you have no duplicates in your deck, you heal your hero back full, which was a massive powerful swing, and it came out early enough where your deck was not super powerful because you'd have to put bad cards in to the deck in order to attain that option. I think that cards that have those kinds of restrictions are very cool. We've seen it with what was it not Siri Nova, the Resilient Veiled Shield Siri. Why did I forget her name?
I know which one you mean.
Not Siri Dash,
Everybody
is it?
knows.
Either
No,
way.
it's not
We know,
Dash.
y'all know what I'm talking about. It's like if your deck has 9 provisions or less, make this card, the Siri gets whatever. Anything that has those kinds of
The
restrictions.
one played in Golden Necker.
Yeah, that's the one. That card, remember the old school Siri Nova, which was if your card had, if all of your bronzes were duplicates, you played Siri Nova, and she would boost herself by 24, or she would strengthen herself by 24. She'd become a 25-point card. Like, cards like that are fascinating and fun. The problem with cards that have these kinds of restrictions is that they have like a sweet spot, like this Goldilocks zone where they're balanced. Because a card like Reno Jackson at first, the detriment was you had to fill your cards with less powerful. You fill your deck with less powerful cards in order to attain the criteria for Reno Jackson to have his effect. But as new sets and new cards came out, you're like, okay, now I don't need to put bad cards in my deck because new cards are out. So this card will replace this crappy card. This good card will replace this crappy card. And suddenly I have a really good deck with a really good condition. And then it's like, well, now we're good. So there's a Goldilocks zone where it's just right. It's not too hot. It's not too cold. And I feel like cards that have these effects can be scary because think of like the old Siri Nova or the card we're talking about, the 9 provision card. That card was those decks were okay until a whole bunch of good 9 provision cards came out that really supercharged it. And you're like, okay, now it's a little bit nasty. So that's where I'm thinking about. Will there be more plans to make 25 unit restriction decks? That's on you.
I mean, the restriction here for rent-free made sense because we wanted to make her have a cool ability. Like in the video that Ryan did with Jean, in a sense that it was just a funny ability first. This was just like something, discard a card, blah, blah, blah. So kind of what me and Flake were kind of petitioning for, that whenever Dagon is added to the game, I hope he's garbage, quote Flake. And this was kind of the idea for the reveal, that we show like a bad ability.
Yeah. I need to interject quickly. The reason why I want Dagon to be bad is because when people freak out, I want people to realize that it was never about Dagon. It was about having a super powerful card. That's what they wanted. Because if Dagon comes out and he's garbage and people are upset about it, I was like, see, it was never about Dagon. You just wanted something really broken that you used to play.
It's about the character that people like. Because Dagon used to be good, like we said in previous episode.
Yes.
And Renfree was highly anticipated because she's a badass character from the books and the story. So they wanted a cool ability attached to her, and kind of this restriction on deck building in this case made sense. And like Flake mentioned, Siri Nova is also a good example of that. Shoop is a good example of that. So cards that kind of limit you in terms of like what you're building in your deck, but kind of give you a good payout if you stick to the restrictions that you have within the card itself.
Yep.
And with this one, I think it kind of just made sense to have it that way. So hard to say what will come in the future, but whenever we release any major important characters, I feel like they need to have some oomph to them, something that makes them unique and stand out amongst the crowd.
Sounds good. Next up, what do you got for us?
This was a cool question that I liked. Let me just find it. Draft updates. Will the Eclipse board make it back to the shop? Nope, it was just there. Blah, 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 blah. Someone that we didn't answer is trying to put their questions back in. If we didn't answer you, that means maybe it was the question. I can't find it, but it was a good question. About what clothing stores do we
Oh,
go to?
where do we get our
Where do we get our clothes? Like
well,
mine's a Gwen t-shirt, so
dude,
that's easy.
I'm wearing like I'm wearing gym shorts and a t-shirt that was given to me by Harry Tarantula.
Oh,
Like
I got it. By Cachaceiro. Cachaceiro, I don't know, one day ago. I want to know where you guys buy your clothes and what looks do you store in your wardrobes? Edit, I mean, really, I want to dress cool like you guys. First of all, I don't think I dress cool. So let's start with that.
yeah. Um I I don't remember. I don't go like clothing shopping. Like I'm very much okay, I need a new pair of jeans, so I'm just going to go get a new pair of jeans. And I'm very much the type where it's incredible how cyclical fashion can be sometimes, where I'll go through old clothes that I have. Like every spring or winter, like twice a year, I'll usually just do kind of like a little bit of a cleanup, and I'll go donate some of my old clothes to like a
I
shelter
do
or
the
whatever.
same.
Yeah, or oftentimes, especially in winter, winter's terrible here in Canada sometimes. So when I'm downtown, if I have to go downtown in winter, I usually bring two care package bags of like it's usually like a sweater, pants, some socks, like a scarf, and like some cookies or something. And then I usually, wherever I'm going, if there's a homeless person, I'll just leave the bag next to them and or whatever, because it's terrible. It's like sometimes it's like awful. That's usually where my clothes go. And when I need new clothes, usually it's like if there's a t-shirt or something that I was like, oh, that is a wicked cool t-shirt. Like it's usually because it's a Star Wars thing, or it's associated with something that I'm very passionate about, like card games or whatever. If I have that, like most of the time, if you see me on video or something, the clothing I'm wearing is either a store that sponsors me, like Harry Tarantula, or or it's Star Wars related, or it's a Gwent shirt, or it's a Seinfeld shirt or something like that. Like that's it. That's what I wear. And gym shorts because they're comfortable and easy to wear, and that's it. So I will say this: fashion is something that's very subjective. It's something that you yourself want to reflect how you feel, who you are, and whatnot. I don't think that your mission should be to look like us. I think your mission should be to look like yourself and to
Yeah.
wear what's comfortable and wear what you want to show off, and that's
Find your
perfectly fine.
style. Find your style. I've always enjoyed skate clothing the most. I love a pair of Vans. I love also a pair of Adidas shoes, or Nikes or whatever. Nikes mainly for running. Same with Adidas. I have a couple pair. That's the running shoes I started with, and then they kind of transitioned into being my walk around town shoes. I really enjoy shorts, anything that is gym shorts or loose fit, same as Flake. Just to chill, like in because they're the most comfortable. Materials easy to wash, and I think that's also important. Um, Still, I spend also a lot of time in like bike clothing. There's like a whole simple. There's like a whole other story that we can get into.
Mm-hmm.
But from like normal day to day clothing is just if I need something, I go buy it. Same as Flake. I'm not into fashion or anything like that, but I feel like the same goes with anything that's. I kind of like I like two things a lot. I like tie dye stuff a lot, and I also love just black t-shirts with a logo or something. I have a lot of like for these recordings or any other recordings, I always wear CDPR stuff. Mainly that comes from our store, or because I get to like get these things for free and actually I feel like working on Gwent and being a face of the game for quite some time. I feel like I kind of owe it back to them to kind of rep the company, and I do it with full proudness because I love CDPR. I love my job. I love where I am today, and it's crazy that I've managed to come to this place. So I'm very thankful for that. And I also feel like whatever you feel suits your style and you like, you should go towards it. Like
Yeah.
if you like it, if you feel comfortable in it, you should go toward that. So for me, t-shirt, hoodie, short jeans, long jeans, Vans sneakers, and apart from that, like having some Adidas running style shoes, which are super comfortable just to walk around town, are things that I always kind of go through. I'm not a sneakerhead. I'm not a fashion junkie. I don't follow Vogue and whatever is cool and stuff like that. I love a t-shirt with a skull on the back or something like that. Something a little bit of punk rock and cool, and that's my
Yeah.
jam. That's my vibe. I don't care if it's cool or not. I like it. I
Honestly,
feel
like
good in it.
I think that I just stopped caring about it. Like once I started to develop like like a lot more self-confidence and stuff like that, like I just didn't care. Like there
Yeah.
were days where if I left the house, I had to have my contact lenses in, my hair had to be done, I had to make sure that I was wearing a good shirt, nice jeans, whatever. Like that to me was what I needed to project. Now I just don't give a shit. Like I don't.
As long as you get out of the house and you don't stink
Dude,
and
that's
stink
it.
and you look good,
Don't
it's all
stink.
good.
That's it. Like my hygiene is what I'm most concerned about whenever I leave the house. But like that's it. Like my confidence comes from my personality. It's not my clothing. So when I'm confident that if I meet somebody that I can present a good version of myself based on that. It's not necessarily going to be what I'm wearing. Like that's kind of all right. There's a question here. Let's just briefly mull over this real quick, which is from Read and Write 01. Will there be will seasonal mode be available to play someone on friends list? I don't know if that's even on CDPR's radar.
It is something that we're thinking about, but yeah, let's see if it's actually possible down the road. But it's on our radar.
Yeah. And the other question that they asked was, is there any chance to add seasonal designations to the Gwent library, a deck made for irresistible attraction mode? Yeah, you can do that. It's called naming the deck. It's when you go and you click on the deck and you can name it, you write irresistible attraction. And there you have designated it.
Yeah.
But the question I actually wanted to bring up, which was decentiflut or whatever. What are major factors contributing towards a healthily developing card game and a card game community? How can longevity be achieved? What are factors contributing to freak occurrences like MTG, which has been around since forever? A freak occurrence, I don't think it's necessarily a freak occurrence, but I understand what you're trying to get at, which is that MTG has essentially been the king of the hill for 25 years. And
the grandpa of card games,
basically. And that's perfectly fine. It's been around for that long for a reason, like 25 to 30 years. Part of it, I think, is the fact that it was one of the first major impacting card games, which is definitely part of it. And the culture around it has just thrived. What are major contributing factors to a healthy developing card game and community? I mean, I think that like most successful card games that I've ever played have had very responsive development teams and design teams amidst bad, like a lot of it was like there wasn't a lot of time between problem and solution. That usually is a situation that can promote and really lead to the momentum of a card game gaining good reputation amidst the community and growing that community. The other is a healthy competitive scene. That is the one thing that I've honestly always believed is necessary for card games to truly thrive, because casual stuff, like, anybody can play casually, but how often do you play Crazy Eights? Like, like there's no competitive scene to it. There's no, that might be a simplification, but I find that the most important, or so the most successful card games typically have a thriving competitive scene that people can tune into or strive for, that it's attainable as well. It's not a pipe dream in that regard. I think that really nurtures what a good community can be. And I mean, in all honesty, a good community is also one that wants to be a good community, that can sort of let the positivity flow and kind of snuff out and deal with the negative aspects. It's much like streaming, when I used to stream, anyone who wanted to stir shit and be a jackass would usually be first dealt with by the people within the chat, because that's the community that they wanted to develop and deal with. Like that is it's a self-policing issue in that regard. So I think that is part of it as well.
Yeah. Let's start off. Mine will be very similar. Healthy community. That's one. A game that is being balanced or has content added on a more or less regular basis where people can try new stuff, play new stuff, and have this freshness coming into the game. Yeah, I think a well balanced game for sure attracts more players, especially if they're already card game players. Different story if you're not a card game player. Then there are games which are easier to play. There are games which are more RNG based, and games that are easier to get into. Which I feel some of them are. Some of them maybe are more difficult. Did I mention healthy competitive scene? I think I did.
Yeah.
But if not, you also mentioned it. It's very important. Esports scene, where players actually get to play on a higher level and bring like super crazy decks, and also pilot them in just like killer what matters that most of us can't even figure it out. And yeah, I think those, like, if you have content, if you have community, and if you have competitiveness, these are all things that contribute to a good card game. I also feel like it's important to have a good onboarding in a card game to get players actually into the game itself. Although, like, what I've seen throughout the years with card games, it's very hard to get non-card game players into card games. It's much easier to get a player that played card games back in the day, like I did Magic, into other card games very easily because you have some type of basis, or you're able to, even if the game's totally different, you're able to kind of associate some things from the game that you played previously to the game that you're trying or to learn now. So, or just by spotting the differences between them, that's already something. So yeah, all these things are very important. And I think it's also difficult because like I started reading more in, since I'm learning Flesh and Blood and stuff like that. I kind of started going back to content that was done like a year ago and stuff like that by people, and especially from people who do like Magic content, like Tolarian Community College, and they also do. They did like the professor. He did a little bit of like Flesh and Blood stuff, and he started seeing people saying that, oh, this game, like, it won't become a thing. It's a pyramid scheme. Cards are super expensive. Like, this has no this has no longevity to it. It's gonna die out. It's weird. Blah 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 blah. Like all the like worst comments that you can get. And this was in 2021, and we're in 2022. There's just callings happening everywhere. The community is growing. More people are trying to game. There's a lot of Magic people like transitioning since Wizards dropped the ball on all the stuff related to how they did esports on their side. So the competitive scene was left alone, and they dropped some important stuff from like Pro Tours and stuff like that, where they messed up. And that's where Flesh and Blood came in and kind of swooped it in. When other card games are focusing on doing stuff digitally, they are doing stuff in the physical realm, bringing people together after a time where everybody was stuck at home and couldn't do that, which is, for me, it's just great positioning here. And they're not doing it because it's only, oh, we want to sell, we want to do, but they found their niche, I feel like.
Yeah.
And there's questions from people like, oh, will this game ever be digital? No, it's Flesh and Blood. It's supposed to be played in Flesh and Blood. And it's new, it's fresh, and I feel like and if any card game comes out right now, if it brings something new and fresh, people are going to go towards it. Look at Snap, right? Maybe it's not very available to everybody right now, but having the game be played pretty much in 6 minutes per match is something totally new. You don't get that in other games. Gwent matches around 20 minutes. Magic can be from 5 to, I don't know, 60 even, easily. Flesh and Blood, I don't know. I've only played Blitz decks. I don't know how long the matches last. Flake can tell you that. But I mean, all these card games bring something different. Hearthstone, RNG Fiesta. If you like that, go full RNG. Runeterra, has your favorite characters from League of Legends, right? You can go there, enjoy that. Every card game that comes out has something different for everybody to try. And I feel like if you find your niche, if your game is different, if it brings something cool to the table, it will attract people and it will start growing if the company behind it pays enough attention and time into it. And that's my answer.
Oh, that's good enough. I think that might wrap it up. There's I mean, all the other questions that we got were I was like, rework this.
I have one question from Twitter.
Yeah.
That I wanted us to get into.
Let's do it.
When you play Gwent or any other card game, is there any specific type of music that you like to listen to in the background?
As somebody who
this is a good question from Atitya Mulia.
Yes.
From Twitter.
Thank you for that.
So any recommendation on playlists or music to play while playing Gwent?
I mean, this goes with a little bit of the fashion thing. It's kind of a subjective thing. Whatever gets your mojo going. I know that when I used to stream regularly before the whole DMCA kind of downfall of Twitch, I mean, part of the joy I had of playing card games was I could listen to the music I want, jam games, and have a good time. I mean, it doesn't take long for you to go back into the archives of Flake streaming where it'd be, 11 p.m. on a Friday night and I'm jamming Backstreet Boys and getting loaded while having a great time playing Gwent. Like that's just part of it. But now that that's not there, I mean, I like playing or like listening to music that I would be playing while on a road trip, like the kind of like those banger songs that you're just like hit after hit after hit, those deep cuts, like those really good, like I just, but it goes all over the place. Like it's much like, some people like the cinematic stuff, like you'll put on like the Lord of the Rings movie soundtrack or the Witcher soundtrack and all this stuff and listen to those. Some people like to really immerse themselves in the cinematics of it. I'm very much somebody where I'm like, I want like a bunch of, slam some Backstreet Boys on there, some Boys to Men. I want to hear some Dr. Dre. I want some Ice Cube on there. Give me some Elvis Presley, some Justin Timberlake, some John Mayer. Hook me up with some Incubus. I want a little bit of Pearl Jam mixed in there, a little bit of Foo Fighters. Like, I'm all over the place. Like, hit me up with some Spice Girls, like NSYNC, I'm everywhere across the board. Like, everywhere across the board. But these are my jams. Like, anything, like, sometimes if I'm lazy, I'll just be like, 90s. Just give me a 90s playlist. Gin Blossoms. Some all over, like everything, some Third Eye Blind, like Matchbox 20, like hit me with those.
20, nice.
Yeah, baby, give me those. That's my answer to that.
Yeah, for me, it's a mix of course, Witcher music, which I adore truly, especially Blood and Wine soundtrack. I can listen to that on the loop. Apart from that, I go 90s, but I go more into the rock music. I also like a little bit of punk rock. I like classic stuff like the Clash, the Sex Pistols, stuff like and also like music which is weird, like Dead Can Dance, for example. I don't know, Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds. I'm more towards that type of stuff. So yeah, a little bit of also like Old Sabbath, Iron Maiden. So yeah, that type of deal. So for me, it's also a mixture, but I'm leaning more towards the rock genre, maybe a little bit of pop, but I will not go all the way to NSYNC, Britney Spears, and Christina Aguilera, Rihanna, and all those avenues of music. I feel like I have a very specific taste in music that was developed thanks to my dad, that was always listening to, it was mainly rock music, but also a little bit of electronic from time to time, like classic stuff like Kraftwerk, for example, which I adore, and I can listen also to anything that they do. But they're all dudes right now, so yeah. But I'm also getting older, so it's fine.
I dig it. Awesome.
Dig it.
Yeah, so yeah, the rest of the questions were a lot of them like, balance this, rework this, when is this in the shop? We have no idea. We don't do balance, and I don't put things in the shop, and I don't think you do either, so that's it. When rework this? We don't know. That's
Happy that premium tokens fell off the map. I think someone even on Reddit noticed, like, oh, it's been such a long time since there was a question about premium tokens. Maybe
why
they're
did you say
learning.
that? Why?
Maybe the hive mind is learning.
Yeah, I guess the Borg are assimilating. They're figuring it out.
Yes.
It's all good.
Resistance is futile.
Yeah. It's all good.
It's been a great episode, man.
It was. We had no script on this one. We just kind of flew off the handle.
All in.
Yeah, lots going on.
But there's just a lot going on. Rogue Mage, Black
this.
Sun,
Look at this bad
Fab,
boy. See that?
Larry Cup.
Yeah, my official Larry
Open.
mug. Yeah. There he is.
Everything all at once.
That's it.
Everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. Crazy movie. Good movie.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna end the episode as I do every episode and say, actually, last episode I didn't do this, so I actually thought about it all week. I was like, I did not tell Pavel I love him at the end of the episode, so I love you, man.
But we told ourselves like twice in chat that we love each other after the thing.
Yeah,
because I remember I was running off to go to a cycling thing, and I was like, yeah, I love you, man. I love you too, man. Take care. So yeah, I love you too, man.
Oh, good stuff, and that's about it. That's all. So thank you very much to everybody for listening, for submitting your questions, and yeah, I know that we can be rough around the edges over here sometimes, but
yeah,
and also
it comes from a good place.
To the one person who commented on the previous video and said I've fallen off the map, that I've lost my way, and that I'm insignificant. Cool story, bro.
No,
I will laugh and laugh at all of the work and career that I build as you continue to say dead game and what is wrong with you. I love you the most, frankly. But
yeah,
that's not true. I love you the most.
Aw.
Got him.
Of course. Got him.
All right. End it.
Yeah.
End it. Pull the cord.
Yeah. Most importantly, remember, you're not losing if you're learning. Keep playing the game. And yeah, keep playing the game and be nice to one another. I think something that we need to highlight a little bit more. Be nice to one another. And enjoy card games. Doesn't matter which card game it is. It can be MTG, it can be Gwent, it can be Fab, it can be Runeterra, it can be Hearthstone, it can be anything. If you're having fun, I'm having fun. If you're spreading positive energy out there and you're getting positive energy from it, do it. Because yeah, you only live once. So why live unhappy, sad, angry, and all that, where you can just be happy and doing cool stuff and thriving like Larry is.
Love you guys.
Cards.
Bye.
Bye.